for Jay-Z, there's always been like the next level, the next level, the next level. And I feel like he's learned every time he reached a new level, he's learned from the level before. And I just wanted to pick his brain on that. And I feel like he has a lot of gems that we could all learn from. If it's not the hustle, then it's the constant push to bettering yourself.
You can catch me later in the morning. Out with my whole team, we drink our ass off. I'ma be the one that's chillin', sitting cozy with the OG vintage Snapback on. You can catch me later in the morning. Out with my whole team, we drink our ass off. I'ma be the one that's chillin', sitting cozy with the OG vintage Snapback on. Feel good, I look good. Feel good, look good. Put it down.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 15 of Snapbacks and Mimosas. I'm your host, Edinosa Erigi, aka the podcast Cuddy with the Yeah, that's the that's the hymns, the hums. That's your boy. I got it on lock. This is gonna be a special one. This is a special one. This is the season finale of season one. Um, and I decided that I'll do something different for that is different right now, but hopefully as I continue to do this podcast, it become more of a traditional thing as a way I wrap up this season. So that being said, if you follow me on social media, aka my IG or my Facebook fan page, the community page. I asked you guys to, give me some questions, and I'll give you some answers. Um, Anything you're curious about, things of that nature. And so this episode is going to be around that and just some final thoughts that I have from actually starting a podcast and actually seeing it through a season one. It's crazy. 15 episodes. It's like ridiculous from when I started the idea to like where it is right now. So yeah, let's just jump into it. So I just want to start off. Um, when I first decided to start this journey, which is like I think it was back in May. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just had an idea. Um, I was bored in the house. It was peak quarantine season. Um, I was missing the streets, as they say. You couldn't go outside, can't really do much. So it was like, well, how I'm gonna get this? I'm an extroverted type person. So like I need some type of like high energy uh, entertainment or interaction. And being quarantined for so long, I didn't get that at all. So that was like one of the reasons why I was like, well, let me start this podcast. Um, but the idea, like just starting a podcast is like separate from what the idea of the podcast actually is. And that was a separate internal conversation that I had with myself. Actually, it was one of those shower thoughts because I already knew I wanted to start a podcast. The question was, did I want it to be a podcast that was just pure entertainment for me and the boys? Like, was it just going to be a podcast that would have no substance and just like be a fun podcast, essentially? And that's that day in the shower when I was thinking through it. I thought like, if I'm going to do this, why not do something that has substance and that can benefit not only me, but my close friends, my circle, my first ring of circle, essentially, and then hopefully get to that second layer, that second ring, and then branch out. So that was just like my idea, and I was I was on Instagram and I was seeing like a lot of my friends like starting new businesses or starting new adventures, and it just got me like thinking like what how do you start, like what's the first step in starting a new venture like that. And from what I've seen in my 28 years of life, I really haven't seen um an answer for that. So it's like a lot of people just starting things and it's in the dark and you just figure out as it goes. And I was just like, well, that's not efficient at all. you know, like that's not efficient to getting things done. So like why are we making it hard on ourselves if we do have access to those same people that have started? Let's tap into those to our community essentially. And that's the whole idea of this podcast, is just tapping into your community of people that you already know, being inspired by your friend's genius. That's the way I like to describe it. It's like we're all geniuses. Um, and then going from there. Um, so that's the whole idea of snapbacks and mimosas. Um, yeah, and I know I kind of touched on this on the first episode. So if you want to a deeper dive into that, check out episode 1. Um, but yeah, so like that's the whole idea, and I think this season has been a success in in that part of connecting people and branching out. I think that if that was like my only goal, I think I hit that right in the nail right in the head. Um, but if that was it, then there'll be no season 2. So I think the next step in the progression of the show is to break past that first layer of community and bringing in more people that have more experience, because even those people that started that first venture, they're not experts. But like if you can break through that first layer and reach out into uh connection of a connection that has actually seen the process through, then we all grow essentially. So yeah, that's where my brain's at. So let's get into these questions. And if you send a question, I appreciate it. I mean, I wasn't expecting to get this much love, but I did. So props out to y'all. And again, I do appreciate it. So I was going to do this like an interview, but then I talked to my brother about it. He was like, man, that don't sound right. Like, I'm not even going to be on camera, just going to ask you the questions. I was like, you're right. Like, let me just do this like any other blogger and just read it straight off like rip. So that's what we're going to do. And first question is, what's one thing you go back and tell Eddie a year ago? And I'm assuming we're talking about starting this podcast. I would go back and tell myself that make sure make sure you have content, like content after content after content after content, because sometimes you do, like as a creative, like you do get kind of burned out a lot, because like it's just like a routine. It's not like it doesn't lose its flavor to you, but it's just like, dang, okay, I got to do this interview, then I got to go and edit, and then I got to uh, do everything for IG in terms of like making the post, blah blah. I would tell myself to make sure that I stack interviews on interviews so that I give myself time to breathe a little bit and yeah, breathe a little bit so that you know that next interview isn't stale. I want stale. Yeah, I would say stale. Like because you have to bring the energy every time. So I think that's what I would tell myself I can go back. Uh, yeah. Thank you for that question. Uh, Next question. Have you thought about trying to get a local champagne company to sponsor you? Yes, I have. Oh my goodness. Like that's like if that's not my end goal, but like that's like level level 5 goal. You know what I'm saying? Like build build a solid foundation, social media, followers, and then once you get the followers, I want to get sponsored by champagne because I'm telling you, every week I'm buying champagne, and it's not like you can like buy a bottle and then save half for like the next one. Like no, once you pop that champagne bottle, it's done. Like it's a party for me after that because I just popped the bottle. So after the show, I'm making sure I'm finishing that bottle. I'm going to sleep. I'm feeling good, you know. So if I can get sponsored by a champagne company, like a local one too, that would be dope. And it would save me so much on my pockets. Also, I was thinking about like, dang, if that dude that did that whole Fleetwood with on the skateboard in the ocean spray, I was like, dang, I should do that, but do it with orange juice so I can get a shit ton of Tropicana. So like I'm trying to get these wheels turning, but yeah, I have thought about it, and I actually I followed like Bel Air, I followed like Koppel, is it Koppel or Copel? Copel, I don't know. I try to find Andre on IG, but I can't find Andre. Like Andre, where you at, bro? You know what I'm saying? But it is on my radar, and that's really what I want. I know I've said it like 2 or 3 times on the show, but yeah, that's definitely a goal of mine, and we're going to try to get that real soon. Thanks for the question. Um, okay, next question. Do I prep questions for each episode, or was it just a go with it type flow? So it depends. It depends. So like it depends on how the relationship is. Like some of the I guess guests I have like better relationships with because you know it's like straight out of college. I have some uh I had a lot of people from like my high school years as guests too, and you know you have to catch up on what they're doing. You're not really accessible to each other like that, so you have to do some research on that. So I did some prep, and honestly, if I can go back and tell myself, going back to that first question, if I can go back and tell myself one thing again is like make sure I prep for a lot of these because um, the more that you know, the more you're able to unlock. You know, what I'm saying unlock in an interview. So the first couple of interviews, they were good. I'm not gonna bash on them, but you know, as you grow and you understand how you want your shows to go, you get better. And I don't know if you can tell, but I could tell as my interviews, as I did more interviews, like the content got a lot better because I would do some prep. Um, but depend on, like I said, depending on who it was, I'll do more prep than others. But yes, I do some homework uh, most of the time. Thank you. Um, okay, so next question is highs and lows of your podcast. Okay, so the highs, um, I guess for a podcast like the ultimate high right now was launching the podcast and then having all of you like DM me or message me and saying, "Oh man, like this is dope. Like you always saw you doing something like this. This is totally you. Like this is we pictured you doing something like that. Like thank you for using your voice and things like that. Or like people listen to like a certain a certain episode and they get some nugget out of it and they're like, dang, like thanks for this episode. Like I didn't think of it this way or something like that is like the highest. Like because essentially the podcast is doing exactly what I wanted it to do. Like I wanted it to help people. So um in that sense, like that's the highs. Now the lows, hmm, I would say sometimes it's the constant having to create content. I don't want to say like that's a low, but like creating content can be draining on you a little bit, and that's the lowest part. And which isn't really a bad low. It's just like once you recognize like that can be an issue, then you're aware to like solving that issue and figuring out how you can solve that. So like it wasn't a bad thing. I felt like I needed those that experience to grow as a podcaster. Is that how we a creative? Um, so yeah, I think that's it. I think you guys expressing how much you enjoy the podcast, and I think that's the highs, and then just the creative burnout is also like the lows. And I feel like any creative could tell you that sometimes you just get burned out on a lot of things, but um, it's also why you need to take a season break to recharge the battery and come back at it twice as hard. So yeah, okay. Biggest learning experience. I think when the biggest learning experience, it's I don't think it's when I'm actually doing the interview. I think the biggest learning experiences that I experienced was was those late nights like editing and watching YouTube and learning how to like create uh, content for IG. How can I get my IG followers up? I think that's the biggest experience I'm learning. Like I'm learning how to edit my movies and edit a podcast and um, use like separate technology. I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like I just went back to school a little bit, and I have like I think it's right here. Hold on. I have like a small notepad that I put like my ideas and like how things should run all on here. I think you should never stop learning. I don't want to sound like that guy that's like go back to school and get your master's degree. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like you could always take something, you know, away from, some small minute things in your life, and the podcast being one. I'm just learning to expand like my knowledge of just technology, essentially. Um, and I've always had like that type of like uh, curiosity with technology. I know if you're an immigrant, if you're born from immigrant parents, like there's always that one child that is the IT specialist for everything, and that was bestowed upon me, and here I am actually using that stuff. So yes, thanks for that question. Uh, this one says, "Will you do a meet and greet?" And honestly, not during COVID, but the whole idea. This kind of goes into another question that was asked, but the whole idea of this was I didn't want to do this like over the internet or like using telecommunication like platforms. I wanted this to be in-person interview. I wanted to share a mimosa with my guests because like breaking bread is just something special about breaking bread with your people. And so that leads to the next question. This question is, how did I decide who I wanted to bring on to my podcast? And that's a it's not a hard question, but I think for right now, like season one were people that I knew personally, um, and that I've seen or followed like create like their own lane and different things. And I thought that it was badass. So I wanted to highlight them because also this is also another reason why I started the podcast because I felt like not a lot of these people that I brought on currently are getting like enough exposure for for how badass they are. They might have, but like I just don't see I don't see it on my timeline or something like that. So I'm just like, yo, you're doing some badass shit. Like I want everyone to notice how like cool like you are right now from for starting something from scratch and like molding it with your hands and so it was also like I want to inspire, but I also wanted to like give them big props. Like I see you, and I want everyone else to see you. Um, so yeah, so like if you created anything, and trust me, like it's not going to just stop with season one. Season two definitely is going to be the same way. But like I couldn't fit everyone that I know created anything like into the podcast. Like I got to take a break, obviously. But if you created anything, like I wanted to highlight that. And there's some people that I asked that just didn't, schedules got to work, and some schedules didn't work. So um, we're definitely still going to have those interviews. And I mean, yeah, it's just like I'm just the type of person that like likes to give props to people like that deserve it, and give roses while you can still smell them. So uh, that's how I picked who was on the podcast. Thank you for that question. Is what do you want your audience to take from your podcast? And like again, my main message is it's honestly this podcast is for everyone that's just started working. It's like a young professional, and it's I've seen my parents do the whole 9 to 5, and we've all seen our parents do the whole 9 to 5, and like that was cool. Thank you for supporting me and putting clothes on my back, some foods in my mouth. Um, but if I don't want to get I don't want to get sucked into a 9 to 5 and just be okay with just doing 9 to 5. Like I feel like we should all have a life outside of the 9 to 5. And like my message just to my audience is you can create a life outside of the 9 to 5. Like the 9 to 5 is definitely you definitely need it because you need to pay your bills, you need to live and survive. But I don't want to live to work essentially. And I felt like this podcast uh can inspire you to be like, oh, I know that this guy is working a 9 to 5, but he's also doing this thing on the other side of that that's beneficial to him. So let's find something that's beneficial to you as well, and you know, live a life that's more fulfilling. So that's my message to the audience. Thank you for that. So thank you for me. Wow. Thank you for that question. Question: are you open to creators outside your immediate network? And yes, I am. Um, I am, and I think that goes into this next question. What do you hope to achieve during season two? So these two go hand in hand. So like again, I talked about like that first ring of people that and that's cool because that's your immediate friend group, and they're going to accept you and love you for who you are no matter what. And for season two, I want to break past that. I want to talk to people that I barely know, and I want to pick their brains and interview them and have them, you know, share their experiences with us as well. So yeah, I am open to uh, people outside of my community coming on, and you guys can definitely like give me suggestions. Like I'll interview anybody. You know me, I'll talk to anybody. So yes, I am open to that. And what do I hope to achieve uh, in season two? Season two is going to be, God willing, we can go outside and play a little bit. But I want to be more interaction with my guests. Um, I want to be able to bring uh, more people on that aren't typical uh, entrepreneurs. Not saying like entrepreneurs are typical, like different types of entrepreneurs. Maybe from uh, shoe game. You know what I'm saying? Like there's sneakerheads that's making like thousands of dollars selling sneakers. Like that's cool. Like that's something that no one in the '90s or early 2000s would have ever thought about. Like, wow, I can make a living selling sneakers. Like, how? What is that? Like, what does that do for you? Like, what does that take? Like branching out to things like that, and like we're in 2020. Like, weed is like going to be legal pretty soon here. Like, I would love to talk to someone that's in mar- that's growing legal marijuana. Like, how was that conversation? And I know weed has a taboo like assigned to it essentially. Like, what is that like? So I would want to have those conversations and get a little deeper into things like that. So I just for season two, I just want to dig a little deeper a little bit and see how that goes and see where that goes. Next question: what has been your biggest obstacle while starting your own podcast? Uh, so essentially, biggest obstacle is technology. Essentially, like, and right now I'm doing this podcast off a mic, my AirPods, and my MacBook. Essentially, and for me to reach that next level of production, I'm definitely gonna have to get my own camera. I'm gonna have to learn. I'm gonna teach myself how to use that camera. I need to create more content with that camera that's outside of the podcast, like photos, uh, uh, trailers, anything that's attention grabbing. Maybe I might hop on the TikTok. Who knows? I might hit a little dance, a little shimmy. Like getting used to where we are in 2020 in terms of technology. Like, I think that's the biggest obstacle, and it's an obstacle that I'm willing to, you know, run and get over. So um, that, and I would say another obstacle. Uh, staying present is another obstacle. What I mean by staying present is because right now I'm seeing this podcast like grow from a little seed of thought, and I don't I don't want to get ahead of myself where I look up and hopefully I get there. I look up and like this podcast is like blown up, and I didn't take time to like enjoy these small steps. I feel like enjoying the small steps and they add up to bigger steps. I think that's where the real joy and pleasure in creating is. And I think that was that could be an obstacle for me. Um, but now that I'm aware of it, I don't think so. Uh, but yeah, I think that's the biggest obstacle for me right now. Thank you for that question. If you could interview anyone, who would it be and why? Okay, that's a good question. I think I would want to interview Jay Z. Jay Z would be the greatest interviewee because he made something out of nothing. Like, you go from selling drugs to survive, to becoming. a rapper, a starving rapper, because you get into the rap game. I mean, he wasn't starving; he was dealing drugs, so he wasn't starving. But like he was like a rapper, but he wasn't like Jay-Z yet. You know what I'm saying? So like you become a rapper, you work hard, you grind, you grind, you grind, and then you make your blueprint, and then you blow up off the blueprint, and the blueprint becomes who you are. Like you know what I'm saying? Blue Ivy, obviously. You named your child after the blueprint. Like that's how big that album was. And then you grow from that. You get your own sneaker. You know, and then from the sneaker you become president of a label, and then from the label you become a sports agent, signing signing athletes, and then you have a deal with Samsung, and it's like amazing because like Samsung is a big corporation, and then now you got to deal with the NFL. Like there's for Jay Z, there's always been like the next level, the next level, the next level, and I feel like he's learned every time he reached a new level. He's learned from the level before, and I just wanted to pick his brain on that. And I feel like he has a lot of gems that we could all learn from. If it's not the hustle, then it's the constant push to bettering yourself. So I think that's will be like my my ideal interviewee, my ideal guest. So yeah, Jay Z, Hove. Um, yeah. Next question: what podcasts are you currently listening to? That's a good question. I think I'm currently listening to Joe Budden's podcast. I love Joe Budden, even though his rap career was Uh, I think his insight into the music game um, is, I think it's a voice that a lot of young rappers needed to hear. I think he gives people the game in terms of like dealing with like contracts and things to look out for. Um, so yeah, and it's just like it's just entertainment. Like he just the way that he I don't know. It might be toxic. It's definitely toxic, but like it's just funny, and it's honest. I feel like if I was with the boys, like these are the same conversations that we would have, but now he's giving it to us in a public platform, but he's also giving us game to creatives, which I am. So like I'm learning from what he's saying. So yeah, the Joe Bun podcast, I would say it's honestly it's a lot of sports podcasts because I love sports. Like All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. That's another good one. Knuckleheads, Road Tripping. Uh, I tried Joe Rogan, but I really can't get into that. Joe Rogan, I just he's cool though. Like all respect to Joe. Don't come after me. I know you the podcast king. Um, yeah, I think that's what I'm listening to now. JJ Reddick's podcast. Uh, I just like a lot of sports podcasts because I just feel like they give me insights into like the way sports athletes think, and those a lot of people don't think of it this way, but sports athletes are entrepreneurs by the time they are at this right now. By the time they're 16, they're entrepreneurs. Like they got millions of people on IG. They're selling their brand, which is themselves. Like Zion Williamson came into college with 1.3 million followers, and that's ridiculous. And he had that like at 16. So I feel like young athletes today are entrepreneurs in themselves, and just hearing how their brain works, and like some of these guys have like Hall of Famers on the podcast, and like I know we all seen like the Last Dance with Michael, and that gave you like an insight to what how he thought. Like I always think that's pretty interesting. So I always follow those type of podcasts. Okay. Last. Would you ever want to be sponsored by Spotify or Apple? Of course, I would want to be sponsored by Spotify or Apple. Like, I would sign that shit like today. Like, I don't know. I think there's always a plus side and a downside to these contracts. Like, yeah, you sign it and you get paid plus, but you sign it and you also lose like creative like input sometimes, or like the demand for a show has increased X amount. You know, so like there's a balance, like the money, because like who would have thought like you would get paid just to talk? All right, and then okay, but like what can I say? You know, but I'm not there yet, so I don't really have to think about it. So like right now, I'll be like, yeah, I'll do that shit. Yeah, I'll take that money. But like in all honesty, like who knows? Like you gotta read the terms and conditions of everything. Even though on the Apple download, I just click agree. I don't really, but that's beside the point. But yeah, like of course, I would love to be sponsored. Um, it'd be great. Are you planning on putting out any merch? And yes, I am planning on putting out merch. I think, I've got some ideas and got some ideas here. Um, so yeah, like I want to do some shirts. I want to do some snapbacks, obviously. Um, maybe some hoodies. I got some ideas. They're gonna be fly, and I can't wait to put it out there because I know y'all gonna buy and rep and shit. That shit gonna be nice. So be on the lookout. Hopefully, season two I can get some out there. We'll see. No promises, but season two, hopefully. Uh, but yeah, I think that's it for the questions. Um, but let me wrap this up. So I really enjoyed doing this, and I've enjoyed you guys listening to it, and to the guys that hit me up like, oh yeah, I wake up in the morning, I put it on. I'm like, shout out, thank you for that. Season two is gonna be better. It's gonna be crazier. It's going to like I'm excited. I just need this little break, recharge the battery, and then we'll get to it. But yeah, if you stuck so far through this Q&A, I appreciate it. I love y'all. Um, I didn't have the mimosa today, but I got the wine. And cheers to season one. And I look forward to an even better season two. Peace. Hey, thanks again for watching another episode of Snapbacks and Mimosas. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. Hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, even share it. I'm trying to get it out there. Again, thanks for tuning in.